Does this mean that I can start?
Yes, ma'am. You can share your screen, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello.
Are you able to see the slides as such?
Yes, ma'am.
Means in the full screen? Full screen?
Yes, ma'am. In full screen.
Full screen. Okay. Thank you.
Wait, ma'am. Wait.
Huh.
Not able to see, ma'am. See the
Okay.
screen.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Now I think you'll be able to see. Now is it okay?
No. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
You can continue, ma'am.
I would like to thank ICS for giving an opportunity for me to share what I know on this subject. Actually, this means to say that the whole thing started with Pranesh from ICS and Jarna from ICS, connecting with me and asking me to do this and do a webinar. And I did not have any topic. I have been watching Sadhguru Sangh, and I have seen that you have a big panel of experts who have already spoken on so many varied industries and industrial practices and the best practices in management and quality, of course. So I was just thinking, what is it that is more important, and how it can be projected? Yes, because we are connected with each other and with the outside world, that is our business partners, in terms of ISO, right? So ISO is what binds us together, and it is one of the passionate subject for me, because whatever has happened, it's been around 20 years in this industry, and ISO has been holding on. Means I've been holding on to ISO, and I always feel that it's a very powerful thing for the industry for moving ahead. And one of the very important incident which happened, which prompted me to pick this topic, was this happened during the COVID times. I would like to mention this because that becomes a preamble for understanding GRC itself in the Indian context. This happened during the COVID times, when I think we had an opportunity to introduce ourselves to the digital world, that is the virtual world of meeting people, discussing things. And this was an international panel discussion I got the opportunity to listen to, which was hosted by certain countries who, that is belonging to the developed world, right, were trying to check out the possibility of shifting their supplier base. Right, we in the world, we have a very strong supplier base controlled by a country. Yes, of course, means need not be completely under control, but yes, to an extent, largely under it. And the developed countries, because of the COVID situation, we know what all happened, wanted to create another platform, and were looking out for another source where they have a supplier out there who is as reliable as this, right? When we say reliable, that is another word, means which explains or defines quality, right? So here they were discussing on it, and their focus area was the South Asian countries, right? And India is a very major, what do you say, partner amongst the South Asian countries when it comes to the economies, right? And also as a provider, resource provider. So here, when the resident developed country, members were asked that if we are to shift to the South Asian countries, we guaranteed quality, right? So the answer was yes. South Asian countries are better in quality. They can provide equally good quality what we want. But there is a but there. And the but was that there is something which is not understood by them and is not at par with the current supplier. And that led me to think very seriously and also emphasize on the ISO defined management processes and how important it is for the country today, whatever we are talking about, the Atmanirbhar or whatever. And we also have an objective of, reaching, I think, in this on the 75th, anniversary of our independence also, a goal was set. But somewhere, if we do not buck up, we will fail. And I would like to introduce to that concept, which the global developed countries are looking forward from our end. So that is GRC, concept of governance, risk management, and compliance. And I think all of you will agree with me that there is no doubt that these standards, ISO standards, when implemented, understood, give us this concept. It only means that, right? Let's see how we understand it and how serious is it that we have to, as Indian, economy, to see ourselves there as one of the major players, will have to strengthen this in our practices. Okay. So the agenda, as I think was already explained by the moderator, is about understanding what is GRC and in terms of ISO and GRC, where it falls and what it is, and then your strengths in GRC, what it is. You know what, when I picked up this particular concept, another one reason why I picked up GRC was I was just curious about, finding out what is this GRC is about. So one of the best, professional platforms where we can check it out is LinkedIn, right? So when I just typed GRC, you will not believe, in terms of companies, services, and individual consultants, thousands and thousands of entries were there. That is when I felt that, oh my God, GRC is a big thing, right? Now, what is it for ISO to take away from this GRC? Around 22 professionals I found on LinkedIn, right? And around 4,000 companies and services providing services under GRC. So I go back to the scenario what I encountered, where the developed nations were trying to understand if the South Asian countries can provide. That is quality assurance. Yes, quality assurance is very much in place, but the but in their perception was the quality compliance. According to them, quality means product service assurance, quality assurance, as well as the quality compliance which goes with it. So the simple meaning was that we know that quality assurance is a confidence the customer places and a positivity which the trust it has with the supplier, that the product which it is asking you to supply will live up to its expectations, right? And when we come to compliance, it is nothing but the action or the fact of complying with the rules, policies, which could be set by the companies, or not only by the companies, because when we talk about companies, we are talking about legal entities, right? So they are very much, their presence is legally approved, and whatever they are supplying is sticking to those set of rules. So when we say set of rules or policies, it is not only the requirements of the customer, but also certain rules and regulations. Here comes two aspects we have to understand. One is the set of rules by the manufacturing country, right? And another one is where you are shipping it out to, right? So both these compliances, the supplier has to understand. That is compliance, not only understanding what the customer wants, right? If you take that, then quality means, of course, total customer satisfaction, but it means not only the product quality, but it means quality assurance management plus quality compliance management by the organization, right? This was my understanding. This was my understanding that here, when you talk about it, they were very happy that we have, as a country, we do not have any problem in supplying quality assured product or services, but they had a big question mark on our compliance management. Why so? Because we know, we to an extent, yes, because we are a legal entity as a business, then we have to follow certain rules and regulations, and we have all the paperwork at place, right? But do we know the rules and regulations of the land where we are shipping it to, where the delivery is going to happen? That becomes very important for us. So that is where, as a auditor or as a ISO management consultant helping the organizations in implementing, I have seen that the understanding of compliance of the customer is not up to the mark. I think most of us will agree with me, right? It has happened. It has happened where they place an order. It is so simple to understand that when you're placing an order for a raw material, let us say now it is a scenario of EV industries which are booming. So here what happens is that the batteries are also part of the product, right? So if you're supplying it, then you outsource the battery. You just purchase the battery and then you send it as an accessory along with your electric product. So now here, when you are ordering to the supplier, placing an order on the supplier for the batteries, it becomes very much important for you to understand that is it an overseas supply or a domestic supply. This small understanding I have seen in industries is missing with the supply chain management. I'm talking about small industries. I'm not talking about the big industries, because the small industries, the MSMEs, are the heart of India. We know that, right? And if we have to grow, the economy has to grow and beat or be on the first place there in the world, then it is the MSMEs who have to do it. So when I'm coming back to GRC and understanding what it is that is missing. You will get these missing links out here. And we will also get the missing links to the ISO practitioners, because yes, it's very sad that I see that the practitioners, do not take this GRC comprehensively when they are auditing. I'm sorry to say, right? Okay. Governance, we understand governance as a combination of processes and procedures we would have. When we say we, it is the head of the organizations, and in ISO we call them top management, the top leadership, right? The key personal management, KPM in the industries, who will set these processes and procedures and the way of work in place. And this helps us in managing the business to achieve the set goals, right? That is governance. That means to say that governance is in the hands of the top management. Governance is an issue or a concept which is completely belonging to the top management and its decisions, right? Then we talk about risk management. Risk, as we all know, is something which can hamper our journey or our objectives, achievement of objectives, right? So management of risk is nothing but understanding these risks, identifying them in each of the corners of the industry, of the business. It can be internal risks and external risks, right? Whatever it is, comprehensively identify them and come out with a mitigation. Otherwise, your goals set by the top management as a business cannot be achieved, right? There is always a doubt there. Will we be able to achieve? And that is not something we would like or is good for a healthy business. And then comes compliance. Because if there is no compliance, then you cannot move the goods out of your compound, out of your gate, right? It starts there. It starts there. If you want to deliver the product, when we say quality, quality also means not only satisfying the requirements, specified requirements, but also timely delivery. And if it has a lot of hurdles on its journey towards its final destination, then so that is where the compliance falls into place, right? So these are the three short definitions of governance, risk management, and compliance. And we know it's all defined in our standards. Yes. We will talk about the governance now in little detail to understand it. So as we already saw that it is a set of, it's a system of rules and practices and processes which a company is directed. And it will involve not only the decision of the top management, because it is in the hands of the top management, a responsibility or duty of the top management. It doesn't mean that they can take a standalone decision on governance, that I'm going to do this and that, as this is good. I feel this is good for my company because I have created this company. I have put in my hard-earned savings or money, right? So they have to take into interest all the interests of the stakeholders, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. When we talk about externals, we know that customer and suppliers are one of the external stakeholders, but there are other agencies who are the major stakeholders. And in that, I would like to bring to forth public as one of the major stakeholders in the industry, right? For a company, for a business. Then we have the internal stakeholders, that is the employees. So they have to balance them. Their interest has to be balanced when they set these rules and practices. Then we have it now forms a small framework for me to set up my company's objectives. And these objectives, when we say the word objective, it becomes measurable. That is, it sets certain targets which can be achieved. And then it is the action plans and internal controls to see that whatever they are doing and doing to achieve the set objectives, the process which has been used is the rules and the practices which they would have defined for themselves. Then that has to be seen periodically, review it, that are we on the right path, right? So these are some of the aspects which is part of the governance activity. When we say governance, it is not only decision making, passing on, say that I'm going to do this on this way. No, there are so many things they have to consider before coming to a decision, right? And then what are the principles? There are some very, very base principles, primary principles, on which the governance stands. And this starts with the rights and the equitable treatment of the shareholders. So shareholders are them who have a direct investment in your product or service, in the company existing as a business, right? We understand the shareholders. And how is it? Because shareholders can be public also, right? It need not be companies or group of individuals who would have invested. When it comes to the public limited company, it is public also who is investing in it. I would have invested, you would have invested. It can be 1,000 rupees or it can be 2,000 rupees, but it is our money. For us, it is our hard-earned money. Interest of other stakeholders. So when we say about other stakeholders, here comes the internal stakeholders, very importantly, the employees, and the external stakeholders, which are the legal entities, right? Roles and responsibilities of the board, very, very important. The board cannot cross. There are a set of rules being set, and and it has been authorized to behave in certain manner, right? Because yes, they can be prosecuted when there is mismanagement. Yes, integrity and ethical behavior. That means it reflects on the first point, rights and equitable treatment of shareholders. And it comes to the second point where I may not be the stakeholder or a shareholder in your company, but I'm a general public, right? Your product should not harm me directly or indirectly. When I talk about directly, it can be, you might be a polluting industry, right? Or you might be having unsafe practices, right? If there is a fire in your establishment, that if I am your neighbor, then I can be hurt, right? And there is something else out here. By your activity, your activity can bring down the reputation of not only your company, your business, but please remember, you represent a country, right? So it can go to that level. So governance comes in that level, the global level. Disclosures and transparency. How do I maintain the integrity and ethical behavior is through disclosures and transparency. That is handled by the compliance ones. And very importantly, I have highlighted ESG. It is the word nowadays. This is nothing but environmental social governance, right? So here we have three aspects which are very important for us and which we have not been giving emphasis on when it comes to the ISO standards, because ISO standards mentions all of them. One is the life cycle assessment, other one is the EPR, which is called the extended producer responsibility. And then comes sustainable sourcing of materials, right? That is ESG. So the companies are now, they have to declare it as per the rules. They have to declare it. It started with, I think, it started with 100 companies, 500 companies, and now today it is 1,000 listed companies in the SEBI, which has to declare ESG. So that means step by step, all of us, all the business entities will have to file their ESG, just like they are filing their annual reports with the ROC, that is Registrar of Companies, right? So it's going to become a mandate because of the sustainable goals that we are seeing for climate change. Then comes risk management. We know it is about identifying, assessing how risky it is, how severe it is, the impact, prioritizing it, controlling it. And also, please remember, finance is a very important part and parcel of risk management, because when you want to mitigate it, certain controls, you need the financial support for it, and regular monitoring of your risk. Because if we have seen how do we assess risk in an industry, we know that we would not like you to just jump from the red to the green zone, right? We need you to take step-by-step action so that whatever action you are taking towards mitigating it is well within control and it is the right one. And you're not missing out on the finance. Coordinated and economical application of resources, very much. This should be an aspect of risk management. So when we are talking about risk management, this has to get into it. Minimize, monitor, and control the probability or the impact of the unfortunate events. That means the risk and identification has to be very comprehensive, and it should be towards eliminating uncertainties. Yes, we know risk cannot be eliminated, but uncertainties, that is risk again, we want to say, right? Just like Toyota says, eliminate defect. So defect cannot be eliminated, but at least the uncertainty in the same manner will not occur. That is what we say. Similar is different, same is different, right? We do not want the risk in the same form and severity occurring. We have to identify that mitigation. So when we talk about this, there is a small question out here, which creeps up in our mind. It looks as if risk management and governance are the same, because who does the risk management? Again, by the governance. It has to be initiated by the government before even you start the company. That is, let us take the startup scenario. Like you start it up, and then you start inviting investors. You put your all your blueprints and show it to them. Then you start getting investors in big numbers, right? That is when you start the mass production with, of course, the required license and approvals in hand. So now, if you have not done the risk analysis before you start your mass production, then it becomes very difficult. That is why risk management is not after activity, it is a prior activity, prior to you actually selling, right? So that means it is the activity of the governance. Isn't it part of the governance? Don't you think so? Can't we include it in the governance list only? Just think on that. Then we come to the types of risks. We all know, I'm just running through it. Hazard, natural catastrophe, liability torts, civil laws. This is a nuisance what we create. That is why we said that I may not be directly connected. This is the other stakeholders who get affected by your work, by your business, and they can take you to court. That also can bring your business supply chain to a halt. Property damage, asset risk, financial risk, strategic risk, currency risk, liquidity risk, operational knowledge drain, customer satisfaction, product failure, reputational risk. These are the list of risks. Please just go back to your own experiences as auditors or implementers. Have you identified risk in all these areas? All these areas. My experience, yes, operational risk is taken. Knowledge drain, no, not given priority, right? Okay, liquidity risk, currency risk, yes, if you're doing a lot of export, right? Yes, you have to. Competition also is not given too much of a prominence. Social trend, no, not at all, right? So these are some of the areas. Financial risk is a major risk. Strategic risk, another major risk. So you will not find any of these risks being identified also. Risk process itself is, it starts with the establishing of the context. And who does that? Governance does it. We have a very important clause there, right? In ISO, if we take management standards, that is ISO 9001, we have context, identifying the risks, and then analyzing and quantifying them, measurable, integrating the risks. Yes, risk which creeps in, let us say, logistics, it will have its impact elsewhere, right? It can have its impact on the marketing. Assessing and prioritizing risks. Which one should I take? Because mitigating risk is needs financial support. So you will have to budget it. So that means you have to prioritize. And another one, it should not hit at your business, right? So pick those up which are very important and then take them. So do not take all the risks at a time. Treating and exploiting risk, that is what we call it as opportunities, right? Addressing risks and opportunities, that is exploiting. When we exploit the risks, the negative becomes positive. That means making good of the negative. Monitoring and reviewing is very important. In many cases, we have seen risk is identified. For the sake of the audit, for the sake of the certification, we just do a major risk list, keep it there. For 3 years until recertification, the same thing goes. And the next year, after the recertification, what happens? Pick it up, change the review date or the issue date and release it again. What will another auditor would have come, or the auditor, why will the auditor remember what happened last year, right? So this nothing hurts the auditor, please, nothing hurts the auditor. It hurts the business, your business and your existence. Coming to the third part, which actually is the most important part, which we have to concentrate, not only as business, but as a country as a whole. And this is conforming to a rule. Okay, it can be a specification, policy, standard, or law. So we have something called, when we are identifying requirements, we talk about stated or implied needs, right? That is it. This is the stated or implied needs. Includes contractual agreements. Why I have included this is because contractual agreement, once it becomes a contract, it has a legal weightage to it. So it becomes equal to a decision between two parties. So either of the parties do not follow it, then you go to settle it elsewhere, right? And anything between an external provider, customer, stakeholders, and here comes contractual agreement with the stakeholders. I am trying to emphasize here the internal stakeholders, employees. We make contract with the employees when we give them the appointment letter. We should not take it lightly. That is a contract, right? So this is compliance. Review of an organization's adherence to regulatory guidelines. This is the compliance process we are talking about. Organization must be able to demonstrate compliance by producing an audit trail. We have internal audits for that, right? And then we have auditors review the safe security policies. Yes, it is very important. We should not let go of that. When we talk about security policies, that means we're talking about our own organizational knowledge and how it has been handled, right? And who can access, because organization has its own confidential matters, which is very, very dear to its existence as a business and the competitive world. And its risk management procedure, how it is. Why I'm talking about this is because if you see the legal precedents in the judicial arena, it has been noted that when the cases have been filed against governance or against a company, the judiciary has taken cognizance of the process of governance, process of compliance management, how efficiently and how effectively it has been implemented in the organization. So if you can project, show that you have been having a responsible governance processes in place and a proper compliance management in place, even if you have defaulted, the judge is a final authority, right? Can decide to give you a lesser penalty. That is the reason why we want the management processes in place, because we do not want to end up in any legal tangles, because it is very, 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 very difficult, at least in this country, sorry to say. CEO, CEOs, CIOs, that is in the software institutions, CTOs and administrators, they have to answer. That means whenever you are having an audit, make sure that all of them are interviewed, are asked questions, pointed questions over the risk management and the governance. Please address it when you're doing the top management audit. That is very important. Identification, traceability of the organizational scope fulfillment. That is the complete documentation. The complete documented information, what the standard talks about, that is what is important here. I am here taking up only the GRC, aspects. I am in between trying to stress that we already defined this in our very, reliable and really handy standards. Why? Because I have seen that organizations treat their own way of doing business as one thing and ISO as another thing. I still see two parallel, it's like a rail track going parallelly. It never meets. When it never meets, they are going to have a trouble today or tomorrow. They will never be able to scale up. So this is how we see. When you see this diagram, what does this remind you of? Doesn't it have all our clauses here? Doesn't it address all the management aspects which we already know about? Right? Do you think if you have been certified for ISO management system, any of the standards for management, do you need an external GRC consultancy services? Just think over it. Operations managed and supported through GRC is one. And we have the three pillars: the governance, risk management, compliance. And if the operations are the input, right, the output becomes ethically correct, ethically improved efficiency, right, of the organization. And in between, we have all the processes, the way we are doing it, what is the strategy I'm going to use, people who are the executioners here, because they are the ones who do it, right? And the technology which supports us. And this integrated aspect has to be brought in. We see this. Where do we see this? We have a guidance standards, that is ISO 37000 2021 release, Governance of Organizations. It's a guidance document released by the ISO family, which provides organizations and their governance through different tools they need to govern well, enabling, and performing effectively, their performance being effectively, and here comes ethically and responsibly in place, right? Ethically is a very powerful word because it hits out on you being you, on your reputation as an organization, and also how caring you are, not only towards your business and the people or the stakeholders, shareholders, that is the immediate ones who have the immediate interest in your organization, but you think as a human being in general, right? And it is here it talks about three things, and these three things are emphasizing on purpose, sustainability, and society in mind, right? Because society is something which is changing drastically, the ways that we are doing business. And also when we talk about society, sustainability has a big effect on society also, right? So we are having the climate change. With the climate change, our agricultural cycle is going to change, and people who are depending on the agricultural sector are going to get displaced, and this displaced, where will they go? They come to the cities, and the cities are going to get overburdened, right? So a lot of things here, a lot of things is there where you have to consider the society will not be as it is, or the structure or the fabric of the society will not be as it is today. It is changing, and that is changing very rapidly also. And then comes risk management guidelines. It again, we have a wonderful standard here, which guides us, which talks about the, how we can manage risks faced by the organizations. And as we know that ISO standards do not see the size or the nature of the industry. It is generic in manner. It can be adopted by anybody, however big or however complex the operations are, right? Then we have the third one, which is a type A kind of a standard where you can go ahead and get yourself certified for it. That is the compliance management system. So 37301 2021 is a current running standard, and it gives you a perfect framework how to identify these compliances which are applicable to you, and how do you develop a system, a process which can take care about this management system, which takes care of the compliance in your organization, of your business. And how, and please remember that it makes it responsive, right? Responsive means it is maintained, it is implemented, it is maintained and monitored regularly, right? So it is very dynamic, because compliance, we have seen in the current scenario, is one of the fields which changes very fast. Remember the one of the laws we had, which was a very old one, Factories Act 1948, right? Too old. 70, how many years? 75, 74 years old. Okay. But if you see now in the past, let us say in the past 5 years, how many laws have been changed, are getting changed on an everyday basis, and how many new ones have been introduced, right? We have entered the cryptocurrency era, and we have the law for that. E-commerce was not handled at all. That is why e-commerce was not taxed also. So people were having a field time using. Everybody wanted to do e-commerce. Then they said no. There came out certain other guidelines and rules and regulations, right? So like this, the law is changing as a society is changing on a day-to-day basis. Even the laws and the rules are also changing. And we have seen that in place of 1948 Factories Act, we have 4 labor codes which has been released, right? And it has brought in 29 labor codes under its gambit, right? We had so many, and I don't think when we went for auditing also, when we checked about the compliance, they checked about the Factories Act, nothing else. It starts with it, ends with it. We would never talk about, have we ever checked the company's industrial standing orders? Where have you made a note of it? No, right? So it is like that, because so many were there. So the audit period is not enough for us to do all that, right? So that was a take. They have the major ones, it is okay. So now as a compliance, the day to day, everything is changing, the laws are also changing. So that means you have to keep a very, very strong vigil on it, because the penalties are too heavy in this, right? So then we have the requirements are generic, and again it can be implemented by anybody they who just want to, because see, when you take any small industry, they will have a big set of legal requirements they have to follow. It starts with your consent to establishment, right? It starts there. Even before, you can say that I'm going to put up a factory, you have to start your work, right? Compliance starts from there. But how many of us know about it? We always think of doing it in the reverse engineering. We'll go there, and then when the audit happens, when the auditor asks something, they'll say, oh, is it? Okay, we are going to apply it for it today. And what happens when you do that? Unnecessarily, you will have to spend more money, right? Yes. So compliance management actually helps you to understand what should be done in the right way at the right time and keeps tab on it. This is a small generic mapping cross-reference I have done when we take our, our basis of our standards and how it works and how we implement it. That is a plan to check act the PDCA cycle into these 3 standards. That's all. It was just a curiosity. I have just shown it here. Okay. Where because 2 standards are the guideline standards, and we have one that is the 37301, which is a requirement standard. So here, this requirement standard, you can actually match it with any management standards, either it is 9001 or 14001 or 45001 or 20,000, whichever is it, 27,001. You can just pick it up and you can put it there. You will get how you can take the guidance from these 2 standards, right? So when it comes to the governance of the pertaining to the Indian context, I would like to showcase some things which we have to be which are very important, we have to take care of. Our nodal authority is Ministry for Corporate Affairs when it comes to corporate governance, right? Here, it very specifically talks about, that is the Companies Act 2013, very specifically says that this is applicable to anybody, right? As our ISO also specifies it is applicable to limited companies, public limited companies, private limited companies, one-man company, or one-person company, or the LLP, that is a limited liability partnership company, right? It can be anything. It can be any kind of a company under the Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, ROC, Registrar of Companies. So that is a nodal authority. It is applicable to all of them. And then comes only the listed companies who would have listed on the SEBI. So for them, they have a set of SEBI regulations they have to fulfill, right? Which talks about governance, which keeps an eye on the governance, where they have to actually, when we come to Companies Act, it talks about the annual general report, right? AGM report. They have to file annually, they have to file, right? And the SEBI also has its own set of documentation, disclosures a company has to make for the listed companies. Then we have RBI, the financial authority. Here we also have, I think, the Institute for Chartered Accountants also of India, right, also has got its own regulations when it comes to the financial matters and disclosures of a company. And then comes the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. Any consumer products or services you are giving automatically is handled by the Consumer Court. It comes under IRDAI, right? And then we have the labor legislations for all our manufacturing sectors and the service sector. We have the 4 labor codes code of wages, code of social security, industrial relations code, occupational safety, health and working conditions code. All this released between 2019 and 2020, right? And then we have the ESG, that is the environmental legislations, that is the environmental social governance aspect taken care of. Some of them I have mentioned here. One is the hazardous waste rules, transboundary, of course. And then we have the Water Act, Air Act, Environmental Protection Act, right? And then we have the disclosures, ESG disclosures by the listed companies, identified by SEBI, okay? And then we have the IT Act, which is applicable for the software industries. These are some of the basic laws which are applicable to them. So when we are checking the compliance as per the applicable statutory and regulatory norms in the standards, you have to refer to this. And then when it comes to the food industry, you know what you have to refer to, right? All the food regulations, food safety regulations, we have to, FSSAI, we have to follow. So this becomes the basis for us to do the compliance audit when we are talking about governance that is directly matched with your top management, right? So this is, I have just taken QMS and I have taken the clause just to tell you that GRC, which is completely a kind of a ethical way of functioning of an organization. Now, that how we are already defined, already have been identified in the ISO standards, and I have taken 9001 as an example here, which is of course the base standard. I always feel that if I can implement 9001, I think I don't need anything else, any other standards, even environmental standards or even occupational health and safety, if comprehensively, if I have implemented 9001 in a business unit, right? So it starts governance. Speaking of governance, it starts with the introduction. You can check out, cross-check it with the standards. If you all have it, you can just see. It starts, it mentions from the introduction part. Then, of course, we know context of the organization is always about the governance, how it should be done, right? And then we have the leadership itself, planning, then we have the support. All this is governance part. Because when we say governance, we are talking about how we are delivering, right? Deliverance comes there. And when deliverance comes, support is very important. Who delivers it? It's the employees, it's the people who make it and then deliver it, right? And then comes the operations part, where we have everybody here. Please remember, everybody here, right? I remember a very one incident which happened couple of days back, right? This was on LinkedIn again. I'm mentioning LinkedIn because it has affected it has affected this particular subject so much. I see here there is a thread of a conversation happening where somebody is asking about simplifying, the time period of inspections. Huh? Because these are the lean manufacturing people who are in that inspection team, right? I think they are doing it, and here the person is asking them, please suggest in your own industry or in your own experience, how do I bring down make my inspection lean, bring down, cut down, because it's eating away a lot of my precious productive time. So I want to bring it down. How? One person is suggesting, who has already more than 10 years of experience in lean manufacturing, and he heads lean manufacturing in one of a very big organization, is telling him, nah, get rid of inward inspection. Okay. I was shocked. I said, get rid of inward inspection. He said no. Then I said no. I don't want to get into that thread of chat, because communication, miscommunication, and misunderstanding in communication is very common, right? And then we'll end up getting frustrated and we exit that group. So I didn't want that. So what I did was I privately messaged that person and just asked him that how can you suggest to get rid of inward inspection. So he said, Madam, I am a lean person and I have seen that it eats a lot of time. So I want to, if I would like to get rid of it for lean operations. And that's all. I means he knows only that. He knows only that. He has to make it lean. That's all. Now, how you become lean? See, if I want to become thin, there are so many ways of becoming thin, right? Either I can go and take some tablets or whatever medicine is available, because I want to continue the festival season happening. I don't want to miss out on the goodies. So I don't want to cut down on eating, but I want to lose weight, right? Festivals, I'm going to buy new clothes, so I want to fit into it. So I want to keep lean. So I take medicines. That is one. And then I can say that, no, I'm going to get up, get enrolled into a gym. I'm going to do that. Or rather, I would say that once a week I'll fast. There are so many methods of doing it, right? Becoming lean. But what is right is what is more important. I have to choose, correct? Which will not hurt me and my future, right? And my existence itself. So I'll have to take up that, right? So this was, I said that how can you take off inward inspection? Now, for operations, when we are talking about, the same lean manager goes to his top management and tells them that lean is killing our time, and that is why we are unable to meet our timelines. So get rid of this inward inspection. And further, he went on to say that I think I will ask the supplier to do everything. All the due diligence for inward inspection, let him do it and send it. This was his take. I said, okay, fine. Can you, if something goes wrong with the product, what you have supplied to your customer, can you get away by saying to the customer that it is a supplier fault? No, right? You cannot get rid of it at all, right? Or you will have to install somebody there in the supplier premises itself, one of your staff on whom you have your control. But still, once the person is out of your sight, you cannot have control. He can become their party. He can change the party. Fine. So on the lighter note, that was. So this is the take. This is the way. If listening to the lean manager, if the governance, that is the top management, says, yes, very true, that is why we are not doing, so we will get rid of inward inspection. What happens? Most of our corporate governance litigation is because of mismanagement, right? Maximum of them are because of that. And there is one more thing. It is called bankruptcy and insolvency case, insolvency and bankruptcy. That also falls in our kitty. We have to be very careful. You know what is this fine, thin line there? Operational creditors, who are your outsourced suppliers or your raw material suppliers, right? These people can declare you bankrupt if you have not paid them for over a period for some certain sum, which is mentioned. Okay, it is mentioned in the the rules, company's rules. So if you have not paid them and you have used their material, the component or whatever they have sent, and you have used it in your product, sold it, that is sold it, end of it, and you have not paid them, then they can declare you bankrupt. What happens to the governance? Governance goes home, right? This is, so do you understand this? Before you are giving a suggestion to take off inward inspection, that inward inspection can save you. One inward inspection report, if you have mentioned about the deviation, if there was any deviation with which you have accepted the supply or concession, if you have not mentioned it, then of course nobody can save you. Nobody can save you, including the God. But If you have an inward inspection report with these things clearly mentioned, it can save your company, right? So these are the aspects one has to know before they can do these activities, right? Of course, performance evaluation again falls in their kitty. Improvement, of course, we know, because they are the ones who will be responsible decision makers to take up the improvement, right? This is the governance part. Let's see the risk management. We know in introduction, in clause 4, 5, and 6, explicitly it has been mentioned, right? Performance evaluation, yes, we do. When we do a performance evaluation, that means we are evaluating because those risks we would have taken as an objective and we would have mitigated it, right? So that performance, that mitigation performance is what we would be evaluating in the clause 9. Are we doing it? That is a question you all have to ask. Then 10th one is based on that, I'm going to improve, because whenever I'm introducing an improvement, I have to also make a list of the risks involved in that improvement, right? It is a new element you are introducing, then it comes with risk. Everything comes with risk, okay? Then comes the compliance part, starts with it introduction, scope it says, context it speaks about, leadership, 6th, 8th. See, it will not mention applicable statutory regulatory requirement. But when we are talking about purchase, already I mentioned to you, it is very important. A supplier cannot send any material without a DC with the material, right? So there comes the legal requirements, a compliance part. Material has to come with certain paperwork, certain identification. There goes the understanding of the compliance there. He cannot simply send a component around, right? Similarly with post-delivery. Post-delivery is a contract between the manufacturer or the supplier with the customer, which becomes a contract, right? It becomes a contract. You would be giving some warranties, then automatically it is a contract. And of course, performance evaluation again is compliance has to be one of the elements there. And improvements, any improvement you're going to take, you have to soak it in the litmus paper. Is it good? It is right ethically, or is it allowable in the law, right? These are very important for us. It's as important as you know, as running calling yourself a legit business, right? So the conclusion is, these are some of the questions. The conclusions is, I have taken it from the language of GRC. So that is governance. I'm going back to GRC. So it is about understanding, asking organizations' approach to governance, risk management and compliance. Is it integrated? So that is what we talk about, right? When we are talking about the ISO standards, also we are talking about the integration of the management. Different identified processes is what we are talking about, right? That integrated, holistic, organization-wide. So none of the activities which affect the business can be isolated. It has to be connected with a process prior to it and after it, right? And it takes everything into cognizance. The 4 pillars we talked about is strategy, processes, people, and technology, what we are using. And does the procure to pay cycle look like? That means your procure to pay cycle, that is procurement of the raw material sources till you get the paid for your job, for the service or the product what you have supplied. That complete life cycle, does it take care of all the four aspects of strategy, process, people, and technology? And then comes, which rules affect these? Understanding the complete life cycle and understanding the procurement to pay cycle, every rule and policies which you have to take care of. So it is not one policy or one law which is applicable. At every step, you have to identify the compliance. And then comes GRC specific components interact with their general counterparts. right? So that means targets. When you are setting the targets, it has to be very understandable. Simple it should be, and achievable also, right? And then comes controls. Yes, monitoring of this process is very, very important. And then comes the objectives. That means performance evaluation. I have set certain objectives. Now, these objectives, are they achievable? Have they been achievable? Is in the beginning stage. That is how we identify it. And if it is not achievable, we do not consider it. And then after we identify it, we see, have we actually achieved it, right? Otherwise, changes get into it. And again comes the adherence. Whenever the object, when we measure it for its achievement, we will automatically get to know how efficiently and effectively it was implemented. That means it talks about the processes which defined them. Were they effective, right? And side effects. What are the side effects? Side effects are the risks, correct? So these side effects, how well were we able to manage them, right? Managing it and continuing the business. So is non-ethical behavior, end of it, starts with identifying what is ethical and ends with measuring it, that anywhere did you do any non-ethical behavior, right? So this is what should be the outcome. And as I mentioned, that the trends in the GRC are, we have already seen that ESG is becoming a near possibility that it will be implemented on everybody. All business units will have to give their ESG disclosures. So that would be the trend. And as we have already seen that the global arena means it's becoming, business is becoming global. And in that context, because that is what brings money into the country, right? When we export, when we stop importing, less imports and more exports is what generates the currency or the money, and improves the economy. So here comes, how good is your governance? That is why what we have seen is that in many of the MNC companies, we see that this 37,000 standard audit is strictly carried out, very, very strictly carried out, right? And yes, of course, in the Indian context, people are not happy. That why are you so bothered about? Why is you come and check our attendance, and overtime, and how many leave and all that. And I keep getting questions also in this context, like, yeah, we all face that, as in the Indian context, we have certain migrant workers problem is there, and all that is there. So where adhering to certain labor codes becomes a little difficult for the personal managers of handling these workers. But yes, see, that is a last question, what falls in our kitty, that we have to do what is best for the business within the ethical provisions given to us, right? Because if you break the ethical provision here, which directly connects you to the constitutional rights, it is not right, because reputation is at risk here, right? So we have seen that when these MNCs come, they also specify that, put it in big bold boards, child labor is not entertained here, and human trafficking is not entertained. So many things they want you to tell it. Why? This is because governance is mandatory in those countries. Human rights, this 37,000, whatever it specifies is about, is a mandatory in the developed countries. So it becomes very difficult for them. They will lose their business in their country because of the supplier here. That is why they do a very comprehensive third party, that is a inspection is carried out here, right, on these suppliers of those MNCs. So in this context, we have to understand that GRC is very, very, very important for us, right? If GRC as a unit is not taken care of, then it can bring down huge businesses, Not here I'm talking about, let us take a global example. We all know Boeing, we all know the story of Boeing, right? And what Boeing has become today. Unbelievable, right? There was a time when people, before taking their, booking their airlines ticket, would ask, will I be flying in a Boeing? If not, then I am not flying. I will take some other mode of transport. This was the mindset. They preferred Boeing. But what happened? The governance changed. The governance changed, the quality parameters changed. And when we say quality in an airline, safety is a very important quality aspect. So that changed. That's when the Boeing, the MAX model had two crashes, right? One in Indonesia and one in Ethiopia. So that brought the story of Boeing to an end. That was a governance problem. Governance, risk assessment, and compliance, all three put together. There's a fantastic movie on Boeing on Netflix. Catch it. So with this, I close my thing, and this is the list of resources I mentioned, and I throw it open to any questions. I hope to answer you. Or if any one of us can attempt to answer anybody's question. Yes.
Yeah, Jarna, can I ask my question? Yeah, madam, I have a curiosity or a question, whatever you call it.
Sir.
Now, inspired by what you said, um, unfortunately, the focus of the ISO standard was generally and mostly on leadership. There is a whole clause devoted to leadership.
Yes, sir.
And I think you also must have come across most situations where people, they limit the QMS to the risks involved in the quality of the product itself, right?
Yes,
Basically, they don't consider, the context part, and those parts are generally ignored because they say the other risks will be taken care of, in the safety systems or environment system. This is a very general feeling I am talking about, and I say it from a lot of corporate experience, having been in operations of nuclear plants and oil industry. So,
yes.
the QMS risk is my prerogative, my area of responsibility. सेफ्टी एंड ऑल तो यार उसके लिए तो सेफ्टी स्टैंडर्ड है ना, एनवायरनमेंट के लिए एनवायरनमेंट स्टैंडर्ड है, गवर्नेंस के लिए बोर्ड है, व्हाई एम आई एज द एमआर फॉर क्यूएमएस being bothered? And now you understand the practical implications of all this, no? They said कि no, right from the beginning, 9001 was about the product. Even if it is legal requirement, I am interested only in the legal requirements related to the product, nothing else.
Yes.
You get the point, no? Now,
Yes.
now I don't know. I'm keen to hear your experience, of how companies actually get into this culture of governance and leadership from a product culture or a service culture in the Indian situation.
Yes.
And believe me, कि मतलब, a huge chunk of Indian companies, I mean, their focus is not really on the governance part and ethics part, and it's a practical observation, and I stand by it because I have been through it.
Very true, sir. Yes, that is my take. Because I feel that the only answer is that, when, like we say that when we, run out of luck, that is when all these things starts making sense for us, right? Why governance is held responsible and why compliance? Because when you say that, see, sir, I'm openly discussing this. I hope we know it's a common experience. Our industry or our whole setup is that we give compliance. How does it work? Regulatory bodies, how do they work? They do that. See, they will not do any work by only taking something which is taken, right, extra, right? They take the extra, but also you have to do your paperwork, right? So there will be somebody who will do that agent, who license between you and that regulatory body. He will do it. The required, because that required paperwork filing, will keep that other person safe. His job is safe, right? But what happens if you do a flaw, means you are caught? Who is going to answer? Who is going to answer? Let us take the example. We are talking about, okay, this builders typically, right? So Maradu case in near Kochi, where the whole apartment complex was brought down by the Supreme Court. Why? Who did it? The builders got a consent from the panchayat, village panchayat. But did you know that you are not supposed to build anything for so many kilometers from the coastline? The coastal regulation rule is very, very hard. Anybody who violates it, it is only demolition, right? You as a service provider or a builder did not take care of that. You should have known the coastal rules. Just by going to the panchayat, giving them some money, getting it done. Now panchayat, they brought down the building. Who is a loser there? If I have booked my flat, I am the loser, right? Now that person cannot even continue his business. That is different. He has to find another new business with it is a different story anyway.
Yeah, I understand.
Right?
The tragedy is others are not at all, means basically, taking a cue from all this. And the business in India continues as usual.
Yes, yes,
with
sir.
one or two stray cases of, some kind of, the business collapsing and all that. And these people, I'm just, my only concern is that we try our best to basically bring them to the context of the organization and governance and all those things.
Yes.
But I'm sure, this must be your problem.
It's a tough job, sir. It's a tough job. That is why it becomes a little. So what happens is that at least we can just tell them, that becomes our duty. That is all I see as auditors or as implementers. It becomes our duty to just mention it to them that these are the repercussions and you have to follow this, right? The basic, as I said that, we are not going to hurt ourselves, but the whole economy as such, right? As a nation, we are going to lose. We are not going to lose as individuals. In our lifetime, at least we will not lose anything if I'm doing something.
Yeah, agreed. And you also know that, most people in India take an ISO or SA 8000 only when there is some export order pending and it's mandatory by the importer in the other country that I need to have to see your certified social accountability system. Then they come to you, and then what they're worried about even then is attaching that document, not really a serious implement. And this is happening with even one of the best companies. Manage karo, yaar, manage karo. This is, this, and I really now have started, getting jitters when somebody says manage karo. Manage karo. And then
dangerous word.
Manage karo is the holy Bible word here, It's
so Bible. Management standard has come to that level.
It has come being managed. Yeah. Because I am impressed by what you said, and we try to in the context and all that. There are organizations. Yes, big companies, good companies. Their board demands all this. Their board says, update your risk profile every 6 months. In fact, there are companies who come to me and say, please help us with our risk profile and please help with their sustainability report, because the board is demanding it. Now, my another question to you was of academic nature. Yes. Why is the ISO silent about governance? Why only leadership is emphasized there?
It isn't, sir. So that is what it is not used the word governance, but all the clauses, what they are trying to say and wants you to satisfy are only trying to fulfill governance.
So is there any
particularly governance word is not used, but context, that is why I use those words, the principles of governance.
Okay, now from you as the expert, I would personally like to have a clarity on what is the essential difference between these two, like governance and leadership, because we tend to use them interchangeably always, So, management leadership is clear. Okay, management is routine, day to day and all that. Okay.
Yes.
Leadership and management is generally now, it's clear. Okay, but why governance and leadership? What is the dividing line?
So when we talk about leadership, when it comes to ISO,
generally, not ISO. Now let's remove focus from ISO. As
No,
a
sir, we
yeah.
should not actually. That is where we are making the mistake. We should
Okay.
not. We should understand our management principles because ISO defines it the best way. The whole world will understand. So it is not different. I am not telling the leadership differently from what ISO is saying. See, ISO is talking about two levels of leadership there. One level is a top management. That is a governance part, right? Governance part, which is held responsible. That is where we talk about the key personal management, KPMs, which is spoken in the terms of the listed companies, or the SEBI talks about them, mentions about them, right? The board it is called, right? That board, that is the governance part. But ISO goes down to say that when it talks about roles, responsibilities, authority, and accountability, it talks about every person who is executing the work as a leader for that work. That person takes up his accountability for the job and understands his responsibility and the authority, right? Before he releases his work to the next process. So this aspect has to be understood.
Okay, ma'am. I think there's
Yes.
some more questions with people
Yes,
have asked.
yes. So many people have asked many questions.
Yeah.
Yes, do I take the chat box? How much time do I have? And I want to ask, were you able to see the slides I was playing through?
I felt that the people who are on their mobiles and all must have faced problems, but I am on the desktop and they were okay, clearly visible.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Because some question here, mentions about slides. Okay, yes, you can ask it loud. Is it okay? Or do you want me to read through the chat box?
Okay. So like I typed on the chat window, when we
Yes.
want to do the compliance audits too for the organizations, the same organizations don't want to pay the fee that is involved. All right. Everyone wants a certificate for about 1,500 rupees or 1,000 rupees. Nahi to Photoshop karke de do. So when we are encountered with something like that, I normally just close my laptop and walk away from there. It's beyond me to do something of that sort. But
Yes.
for a growing auditor, or let's say a guy who's just entered into the field, he's ready to do it.
Yes.
How do you handle that kind of a situation?
Sir, ये प्रश्न तो मोदी जी के लिए है.
Yeah, I lost two beautiful companies on a tender for about 10,000 rupees is what they said, that they can do the entire audit and the certification. I said, please get it done. Tomorrow when I come and audit the same company, you'll fail.
I have had experiences similarly. I have also walked off from them. And I have another experience where they have spent a solid 1 year implementing, taking extensive training and getting the internal audit done, and then getting the certificate, without getting the audits done. That also hurts. And there is a third one I encountered. It is in the recent past, and it's continuing, and more companies are coming out like that. These are companies who have completed around 8 to 10 years in the market, and they are getting new orders, but they are unable to scale up, right? So that is two projects, and I was so happy to see it. I said that I had to wait 10 years to see this happening. This will happen to them. They cannot scale up, of course. And before giving a big order, one of the customers who was based out in Europe wanted to do a visit, and he rejected. He said that I'll never be making any orders to you because the state of the industry, right? But he had been supplying quality product. That is there. But his system here, as I said, governance is shown here. If something goes wrong, his reputation is there. There is a very famous brand, Primark textile, retail in the Europe, right? So this one had to shut down their shops because the people found out that the clothing what comes to the showrooms are sourced from South Asia, especially India and Bangladesh, where child labor is used. So they made sure they were shut down. And today, if you see those showrooms across Europe, you will see huge banners telling that we don't, they have running advertisements and trying to shout out to people that no, we don't employ, child labor or anything. We don't encourage. So they had to close down for a long time before they had to restart. So that is the that means you cannot export. How much will you feed your own people, right? If you want to make money, you have to do it in dollars and euros, right? Somewhere that call has to be taken, and as much as possible we'll have to do it. That is my take. That is जब ज्ञान देना होता है ना सर, तो दे देती हूँ, बस करो आप. अब कल मतलब how much ever I can do, I do it. So, and they have been having problems. Like, okay, when it comes to compliance, we know, POSH is important. So now, how many of these organizations have implemented it? They say they have implemented POSH, and who is the chairperson? Oh, it happens to be one of the directors, who is a woman there. So of course, blatantly you are breaking the requirements of the POSH requirements, right? Or you do not have it only. But there has been agencies, and I think there has been some public appeals which has reached the Human Rights Commission, and especially here in Karnataka, we had, even in Maharashtra also, that letters were sent to individual business units, be it a one man or be it 100, whatever is the size. It was sent to them that within a week they have to submit all the required videos, photos, and all that. Many of them got it. That is when they realized that when we as auditors asked them that do you have POSH in place, and suddenly they got this, and they said suitable actions will be taken if you do not. So at least that put them, on alert. It is like a CCTV. That's all. Okay.
But yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else you want to ask me anything? You can please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
One more question from chat box. What is accepted future trends in GRC?
That is it. That means, as I mentioned, that one is the ESG part, sustainability part, which is going to become very, very important for us. And here, see, it is very simple. Digitally, everything is getting identified and traced now, right? Digital footprints. Most of the systems are getting into the digital way. So that means that you are very easily tracked and identified. You cannot, do anything wrong. That is the first step. So your governance, are you doing it rightly? I am observing you. It is just like sharing the PAN card, just like our ITR, how it is now, so easy it is. Now they know how everything is happening to you. So like this, slowly it is coming into it. Like monitoring is being taken over, because we know that, as we were discussing, faith in governance is less, trust in that, confidence in that is less. So there are other means of implementing the compliance, getting compliance. So that is what is happening, and that is what will happen. So that will be the trend here. That is, you become responsible. And here there is one small experience I would like to share is the startups. How many of the startups who are into manufacturing will start their compliance with consent to operations, consent to establishment? How many of them do it? Right? How many of them do it? No, very, very less. But you have enlightened one also, but the percentage is very less, right? So this is the trend, but it will improve, and we have to play our part.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. One more question from Aman Vishwakarma. What is GRC particular target audience? Is it food, automobile, or IT industry? Also, is
everybody, all business.
Also, GRC is similar to ISO?
That's what I try to bring in, that concept. We are talking about GRC. GRC is nothing but it's already been addressed in ISO standards. So there is nothing new about governance. These are all jargons, big jargons used by big companies and big service providers, who have made, as I told you, thousands of companies are there in the name of GRC consultants and services on LinkedIn, right? So it's please implement ISO, understand it and implement it, because ISO says is what does it say? It says that to your capacity and usability, implement it, right? So then GRC will become good and you can use it as a brand. GRC is brand. It's for branding, right?
Yeah.
Sir.
Good afternoon, Smitaji. And
Good afternoon,
first of
sir.
all, I congratulate. It was a very wonderful session, and I have personally attended the complete session.
Thank you, sir.
And I really wanting to know one thing on behalf of all auditors here in ICS, that how better we can do it when we are doing conducting audit for ISO 9001.
Yes.
And most of the time, this statutory and regulatory requirement in ISO 9001, the report says nil. So you have given us a good insight about the context, where the context is generally written only the area and the superficial things, which is
Yes.
not at actuals, which we keep trying tracing back to the customers.
Yes.
Put all those requirements in the manual of the context is not only the area and the location or the turnover.
Yes.
So how it can be bring into the ISO audits about the compliance requirements?
Sir, as I mentioned, sir, when we the other person who was asking the first, I didn't get the name. I did not get his name. I'm sorry. So he was talking about if it is compliance, then they say that it comes in environment or health and safety.
Correct.
No, you handle it. Just because it is mentioned means the whole these two standards are based on legal requirements. Then you talk about legal there, right? I have seen it here in the QMS that compliance is given a least of the importance as such, right? But as I said, when we take the international context, their understanding of quality is different. For us, it is only that I'm specific, whatever specification you are giving, I am supplying it to you and there ends my role. That means it is 100% quality. But no, the customer there is asking you something else also, right? So that is what we have to understand. Otherwise, it is useless. If it is, here, what we can do is that, yes, we know that for a QMS, then if it is a factory, then it is the Factories Act which comes into picture, what we have to check therefore. And if it is IT industry, then it is the IT Act which comes into picture. And if it is a food industry, we know that the food regulations, safety regulations are in place, and we have to look into that, right? FSSAI licensing and things like that, that comes into. But here, when we have the appropriate licenses, why are they asking for ISO certification? And in ISO certification, that means what? Why should we look into compliance, right, sir? So this is because that, as I told you, licenses can be taken. FSSAI, sorry, I hope I'm not on record and nobody gets into trouble. But we know it is an open secret that without visiting the premises, a license is given, right?
Absolutely.
It's a known thing. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
So now you see why is somebody else, like when you want to market or sell your product, that somebody who wants to buy it from you is asking for an extra certification. He wants to make sure that at least somebody goes there and checks their premises, right? Now, there was this question also where we have a gray market in our field, where certificates are issued for a couple of ₹1,000. By just paying, you get the certificate, and when you check it online, it is an authenticated, valid certificate, right? We have that gray field. We have to fight it out together there.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely, we have to do in that way only. And
that way only,
you have rightly said we have to, while conducting ISO 9001 audit specifically, we have to see HR compliances separately, procurement compliances separately, contract requirements separately. then
Yes.
we'll come to know the compliance is in place or not.
So
Where we are missing.
here I always use, my first question to all the business owners or anybody who is interested in business and wants to put up a business is this: how long do you want to see your company in the
Absolutely.
market? That business continuity is a keyword for ISO, right? Whatever we do after we giving certificate, every subsequent audit, we have to look into the business continuity aspect only. So if you even not take into consideration any one of the compliance issues or the risk issues, which are all interconnected, if you do not take care of the compliance, then it becomes a risk issue. It becomes a major risk, and then that will highlight on the governance. Correct. So it is a cyclic process. All these elements cannot be understood as separately, right? That is what also is highlighted in the standards. It says interaction of integrated process management is seen there, right? So if you want business continuity, then please do all this. Simple.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that auditor's
Or
responsibility,
spend-
yes, the auditor responsibility
Yes.
even to take it into a proper way so that they understand in better
Yes.
understanding is there with them.
Yes. Yes, sir. This thing is that as much as possible, go through the compliance. Go through, and if you don't like, means many of us will not understand the language of the law. It is very vague. It is just as vague as our standards, because our
Absolutely.
standards also is the same language. So the best thing is put the keywords and say, cases. Just go put it on Google. You will get such interesting cases. It is like a stories, right? But you will get to know what it was, what they failed in these three aspects of governance, risk, and compliance in the management process, which brought them to the steps of the court.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I think we have overshoot the time.
you. Yes, yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Any questions? Please put your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask directly.
Yes, no questions as such. Then,
Yes, ma'am. No questions.
thank you. Yeah. Do you close it, or what is it? How do you?
Thank you so much, ma'am, for informative talk. Thank you so much, ma'am. Our next session is on regulatory business license for exporter, importer, common licenses, manufacturer, and service provider. By Mr. Sham Sharma, followed by questions and answers. Feedback form. Please register on www.sadgunsang.org and go in your login and give feedback. On behalf of the Sadgunsang team, I would like to express my gratitude to all esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. We now officially close the session. Thank you all.